Sad news to pass along this morning as legendary Florida State head football coach Bobby Bowden has passed away at the age of 91. Bowden's coaching career spanned 44 years, 34 seasons with Florida State, 42 of those 44 seasons ending with winning records. Bowden led the Noles to national titles in both 1993 and 1999 and was elected into the College Football Hall of Fame in 2006. Bowden's 377 wins rank second all-time behind only Joe Paterno, a legacy that will live on as long as the game is played. Joining us now, we have the privilege of being joined by two gentlemen who played for Coach Bowden, CBS sports football analysts and Seminole greats, Kanell and Bryant McFadden. Gentlemen, first and foremost, my condolences to the both of you. There are few non-familiar relationships in life more formative than player and coach. Danny, can you give us an idea of what Coach Bowden meant to your life?
It's hard to put into words, Joe, because he was such a special man. And, you know, when you think about the change you go through from the time you go to college to the time you leave college, it's really an impressionable time in your life, right? That's when you make a lot of your lifelong kind of, character traits that you want to ingrain in your life and in your family when you leave college and if you get married. And Coach Bowden, that was the reason I chose Florida State, right? Because I felt, and my parents felt like they could trust Coach Bowden to instill in me the right values and to put a priority on things that mattered more than football, like family and like faith. So I would say way more than Coach Bowden impacted me as a football player and enabled me to go on to the NFL. The lessons that he taught me, I implement in my family now when as a father and what I want to teach my children. And a lot of those values came from what I learned at my time at Florida State under Coach Bowden.
No doubt special lessons learned each and every day. B-Mac, I'm interested, how did you change as an 18-year-old to a 22-year-old in those 4 formative years, your time with Coach Bowden at Florida State?
Oh, man, just being able to watch him, listen to him, learn from him was something I needed. And Danny hit on it. It wasn't just about Coach Bowden being a football coach. He was a coach of life. He coached us the game of life, integrity, doing the right things, practicing the right habits on and off the football field. And those were things that I learned in Tallahassee, but I still apply to my life today. He was a humble individual. He was an individual that didn't really raise his voice, but when he spoke, we all listened. Anytime he walked into a room, we all sat up straight. Anytime he wanted us to do something, we did it because of the respect. And it wasn't just because he was a successful coach. It was because of the type of individual he was. And because of that, there are so many people, they're mourning this loss that didn't have any, strong connections to him personally. So that tells you the everlasting impact he will leave here on earth.
Yeah, that mystique felt, I'm sure, by the players, but also it came through the television each and every Saturday. That sort of impact felt, as you said, B-Mac, by thousands of players who stood in the shadow of Coach Bowden's straw hat on a summer day. B-Mac, the idea of the prolonged success personified by Coach Bowden. Many of us were privileged to watch that success from afar, but to have been a part of it, that pride you carry forever as a Florida State Seminole. What does that mean to you, and how did Coach Bowden shape that?
Man, listen, Florida State is a national brand. I mean, what Florida State is today, Bobby built it from the ground up. I mean, look at what he did in the early 80s when so many other prestigious football programs had steps ahead of Florida State, and he just kind of tracked them down. From the 80s to the 2000s, look at what he did, how he dominated the ACC, how he dominated college football and made that brand a noticeable brand. Anywhere in the country, when you see that Seminole head, it hits differently than other programs. And it's because of Bobby. And the thing about Bobby, he wasn't a guy that was, into the new era of things, but he emphasized confidence in his player. And the swagger that we see at Florida State during his time was something that he silently required. The Deion Sanders of the world, the Charlie Wards of the world, the Terrell Buckley, Warwick Dunn, Marvin Jones, Derek Brooks, I mean, Chris Wanke, Danny Kanell, Thad Busby, Kes McCorvey. There's Ron Simmons. I mean, there are so many people that came through Florida State. And I know Bobby didn't coach Ron Simmons, but there are so many people that came through Florida State and they just left an impact that would forever be felt. And it's because of Bobby. Bobby commanded, and that's something he required. Go out and give it your all, but do it with your chest and your head held up high. And that's why that brand is a everlasting brand right now.
Yeah, just to echo what B-Mac is saying, it's culture. You know, Coach Bowden created a culture at Florida State that is a winning culture and a standard of excellence that he set. And a lot of great coaches, they come to programs and they rebuild programs or they inherit programs with rich traditions. Florida State didn't even have a football team in the 1940s and 1950s. When he took over it, it wasn't a well-known program. He built it up from scratch. And that's one of the toughest challenges to do in a sport with so much tradition in college football. But the expectation every single year was national championship. That was it. And it was passed on, much to BMAC, the legendary list of players that he listed. It was passed on from generation to generation, so that when you go there as a freshman and you look up and you see guys out there like Charlie Ward, who I backed up, and he watched Brad Johnson and Casey Weldon, and those guys watched the quarterbacks before them. And, you know, at every position, you looked at the upperclassmen and it was passed down to you. And it was a culture that was created of excellence. And it all goes back to the standard of excellence that Coach Bowden, you know, ingrained in his players. And it wasn't just on the field. It was little things. BMAC will appreciate this. Our locker room was spotless. We had to put our, you know, helmet on the left side, shoes on the right, pads hung up, leave it clean every night. And if you didn't, you were going to have to run after practice. And it was the little things that he preached and the standard of excellence, which is why he was able to build it up and sustain it for so long.
You know, those coachisms, they tend to stick with you guys. I was always told to inspect what you expect, and that expectation at Florida State, as you guys have outlined here, was one of championship quality, not just on the field but off. Sometimes, guys, the best medicine in times of great heartache is to share a memory. DK, I wonder, is there a memory of Coach Bowden that you find yourself daydreaming of going back to often?
Yeah, I just remember, so as upperclassmen on the team, we would, well, so I'll give you the background. So every night, every Friday night before home games, we'd go out to Thomasville, Georgia, and we would stay out there at a little Holiday Inn to get us away from Tallahassee and the distractions. And as a younger player, you would get on the big, you know, bus that carries, you know, 50 players or so, and they had 2 or 3 of them in a caravan that goes. But the older you got and you were an upperclassman, you could ride in like a little 8-person van, and Coach Bowden was in that van. And I just remember the hour-long drive with the other seniors on that team and Coach Bowden kind of telling stories, asking us about our lives, you know, and just that one-on-one time, which you didn't get a whole lot because there's, you know, 110 players on the Florida State roster, but getting to see that more intimate side of Coach Bowden in that type of setting, to see him laid back and talk about his wife and tell stories about Ann and about his family, and to tell us about what he'd been through and learned, just those little conversations that we had are times that I go back for. And I think what an unbelievable opportunity I had to get those moments with Coach Bowden at a time when they just really, again, they ran through my blood for the rest of my life. And those stories were some that I'll cherish forever.
Yeah, set the course of your life, special moments, no doubt. BMAC, is there a memory that sticks with you?
No question. I got a few. I was disciplined by Big B at one point in time because I spat my shoes, and Danny know how important showing that Nike swoosh was to Big Bowden because of the contract. But a few years ago, I had an opportunity of talking to Coach B on the phone, and I had him on one of my podcasts that I was doing some years ago. And before we got into the podcast, and Danny knows exactly what I'm talking about with Coach Bowden. Coach would anytime we had a game on Saturday, and he would do his TV show with Gene Deckerhoff on Sunday, and if we were watching it, we got used to seeing Coach Bowden forget a name. Like, it would be a wide receiver or a corner get an interception, and he'd be like, oh, yeah, that's and then Gene would have to fill in, and, oh, Coach, that's such and such from Lake City, Florida. Oh, yes. Great player, great family, comes from a good background. He will always forget a name. So it wasn't surprising to us. It was like he coached so many players, he would get a name. So we're on the phone chatting it up, get ready to get into the conversation. And he's like, he called me McFadden. He didn't call me B-Mac. He didn't call me Bryant. He always say, hey, McFadden, McFadden. So he said, hey, McFadden, how's your sister doing? And I was like, my sister? I said, dang. I said, she doing pretty good. I said, Coach, you know who you're talking to, right? He said, yes. He said, I remember on your visit, which was 1999. He said, I remember on your visit, you had a little 3-year-old sister that was with you. How is she now? I know she has to be grown. She has to be about an adult. How is she doing? And it blew my mind because I seen Coach Bowden forget so many names that he saw on a day-to-day basis. But for him to all of a sudden ask how my little sister is doing, who is now in her 20s, it was mind-blowing for me. So that tells you how strategic his mind is, and got into the conversation. I'm like, well, dang, Coach, if you remember my sister, then I guess I guess I was kind of an okay player in your eyes. But that just tells you how, like I said, how strategic his mind was. But man, legendary coach, man. There's so many stories we can share with him about him. We don't have enough time, but legend. In my football career, I played under so many legends. Mickey Andrews, Bobby, Bill Cowher, Dick LeBeau, Mike Tomlin, Hall of Famers. My football career has been nothing but a blessing when you look at the coaches that I played under. And Bobby is at the top of the list.
None of those, I would say, were possible without the tutelage of Coach Bowden. B-Mac, we appreciate you offering your memories, offering up some thoughts here. DK, you as well. Thank you guys for taking the time. You're in our thoughts moving forward here, guys. Again, sad news as Coach Bowden passing away at the age of 91, a life fulfilled and a legacy led by Coach Bowden at Florida State that will live long after that 2021 date between the dash. Bobby Bowden, dead at the age of 91.